Arc Raider's next expedition window is now open, and today I want to run down a few things with you as things you should know, because while this is relatively normal at this point, the cycle of gearing up for a reset, then going into the reset, there's a handful of things that are indeed different now, and some new features that have been introduced since our last expedition that when you ask yourself, is this expedition worth doing, it may affect your answer. Drop your thoughts as we go along, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe for more Arc Raiders and other FPS content. I'd love to have in the community. And finally, check out my friends over at Advanced GG, where code Espresso can get 10% off your entire order, but more on that a little later. For now, let's get into it. So first, let's talk basics. What you need for the expedition itself, starting with the project. For this, you'll have multiple phases as usual. Phase 1 is 150 metal parts, 100 chemicals, 80 arc alloy, and 15 canisters. Phase 2 is 30 durable cloth, 25 oil, 20 electrical components, and 3 industrial chargers. Phase 3 is 20 arc motion cores, 15 speakers, 5 turbine compressors, and 2 Exodus modules, while Phase 4 is 1 portable TV, 5 advanced electrical components, 2 Serena Dorota ship models, the pink ones, and 3 vaporizer regulators. And the final stage is Phase 5 with 200,000 worth of combat items, 100,000 worth of survival items, 150,000 worth of provisions, and 300,000 worth of materials. Then you can sign up for the expedition once that is completed. Now, when signing up, it's important to know what is kept versus what is not. Of course, some of what we've already experienced so far is common knowledge at this point through 3 prior expeditions, right? Blueprints, inventory, stash, level, bench, and quest progress, and so on is all going to be reset in favor of a few things, expedition over expedition, being bonuses, right? Well, what you gain is a little different this time around, but also one thing to note is that this is the first expedition with Ermal, the nomadic trader available, who notably offers 2 services to help you out fundamentally: stash expansions and the expedition vault. Now, of course, the expedition vault will allow you to carry over upwards of 5 items, whether that be blueprints or specific items or guns, whatever the case, it's entirely up to you. But once that transfer is complete, you can expect that to reset and for the challenge to likely be required to be completed, or I guess those slots to be purchased for a better terminology, once again on the other side of the expedition, meaning that that grind will be seasonal. Same thing goes for stash expansions, as a way to allow non-expedition progression in stash to players who did not partake, but also as additional bonuses for those who do. They still follow the same rules as the other stash-related expedition tethers, meaning you'll see these likely resetting and once again, likely required to complete it once more on the other side of the expedition's wipe. Perhaps your first big marker of, is this worth it or is this not? But with that in mind, if you decide to sign up for the expedition, that's when you'll be referred to the damage challenge. This, of course, returning from last expedition, which is nice to see. It gives you a purpose to the expedition window rather than just sign up and wait, while also encouraging players to use their gear rather than hoard it. I don't believe that this will show unless you've already completed your caravan, but I could be mistaken on that one. As of recording this, the only prior example of this was the last expedition, which that was something that I had signed up for immediately, so couldn't double check that one. But damage this time around once again, with your damage milestones being 5,000, 10,000, 30,000, 50,000, and 100,000 damage respectively. Now, personally speaking, I like the medium-sized arcs here for this, just to give like a little bit of a tip. Bastions, bombardiers, leapers, vaporizers. In the earliest days of this being announced, it was mentioned that 100,000 damage was roughly 20 bastions, so about 5,000 per medium-sized enemy, right? With that in mind, let's take Riven Tides for example. Like your best case scenario, you get a bastion and a bombardier to spawn in that beachside basin or ravine between the shipping side hills and the actual levee or seawall. So you take your hull cracker or weapon of choice, knock out those 2, that's 10,000 damage right there or around there. Then you can go off, venture to find a leaper, vaporizer, something similar, and then circle back and potentially hit both of those medium-sized arcs again if they do spawn and you're uncontested for those. So like best case, 20 to 30,000 perhaps in a single raid for damage, but again, that's easier said than done because at that point everybody's trying to do the same thing, even in the safest of lobbies, so you're probably not going to get all of those just to yourself, but playing a little bit of time each day, you're going to have ample amount of time at that point in the 2-week window. Now, that said, Last Chance will also end up returning here for those that may not be able to get a ton of time to play within this 2-week window. So long as you've completed your project and your caravan, you'll also have the opportunity at the end of that window when you log on next to be able to just depart as a last chance. From that, you wouldn't end up getting the mystery rewards or skill points, depending on your expedition you're on. More on that in a second. But you'd be able to keep your bonuses from resetting, which is the big part here out of this. Moving on into the next reset, but at a sort of baseline. Now that said, your rewards for the expedition this time around are a little bit different, and I do think this is a big focus for the question of, is this full reset worth it this time around? Because I feel like for some people, it may not be. So that said, what you end up getting for the expedition this time around, as we've discussed before, is the Zenith outfit first and foremost, cosmetically speaking. It just sort of, hey, you've done it, here's your reward type of thing, where this is the first of a new set that we'll see progressively unfold throughout future expeditions. We ended up having the Patchwork Expedition outfit, having those 3 phases through Expedition 1 through 3. This will seemingly be the next stage of that here, where this is our first offering for that outfit. You'll end up getting the plus 12 stash space on the other side of the reset that you can end up going a little bit further in terms of upgrading your stash. Raider tokens you'll end up getting for each subsequent tier of the damage threshold you end up hitting. And then the big thing this time around for the 4th expedition will be blueprints at random. Put an asterisk on this because it is for your 4th expedition, so we'll come back to that mention in a second, but you can get anywhere from 0 to 5 blueprints, all based on the damage challenge that you complete or how far into that you end up getting. So 5,000 damage, you'll end up getting 1 blueprint secured plus 150 Raider tokens, 150 total. 10,000 damage, you'll have 2 blueprints secured plus another 150 Raider tokens, 300 total. 30,000 damage, 3 blueprints and 450 total Raider tokens. 50,000, 4 blueprints and 600 total Raider tokens. And then 100,000 damage, you have the max of 5 potential blueprints secured on the other side of the expedition reset, and 750 total Raider tokens to go along with that. But as mentioned, it's a mystery blueprint. So how does that work? The actual animation process here of how this will work, we don't know what that looks like until the actual window itself closes, but essentially it's looking like a giant RNG spin of the wheel, where you can land on a handful of different blueprints, some sought after, some helpful and useful, some you might not care about too much at all. Those including the Heavy Gun Parts Blueprint, Complex Gun Part Blueprint, Padded Stock, Extended Barrel 3, Muzzle Brake 3, Stable Stock 3, Vertical Grip 3, Venator, Rascal, Osprey, Trailblazer, Anvil, Bettina, Hallcracker, Tempest, Volcano, Delabra, Aphelion, Combat Mark 3 Flanking, Tactical Mark 3 Defensive, Looting Mark 3 Safekeeper, Looting Mark 3 Survivor, Wolfpack, Power Descender, and the Snap Hook Blueprints. All of those, again, being randomly selected for each account that ends up going through this. Upwards of 5 of those being possible. So obviously a big change compared to what we've seen in the past, because what you do not get this time around on the 4th expedition are skill points. It has been mentioned for a few months now that there would finally be a cap to skill points, with devs going on record saying there was never the intention to do that in perpetuity, because it eventually would become a huge imbalance of skills for fresh players compared to seasoned veterans on their 4th, 5th, 6th, or whatever number of expeditions they've taken. However, this is Expedition 4 exclusive, so those that are on their 4th expedition won't get any skill points, but for those that are still on 1 through 3, you can still end up getting those 5 skill points for the damage challenge here. Now, the catch-up skill points are also available even if you are on your 4th expedition, meaning you can have upwards of 5 max that you can catch up on if you missed any of those from the last expedition, only going back a potential of 1 expedition, where you end up having the ability to get those skill points for inventory and coin value. So about 300,000 coins or comparable stash value per skill point that would allow you to catch up on those upwards of 5. So if it's not your 4th expedition, it's still very much so worth doing, but for those that may be embarking on their 4th, the rewards are different and therefore may not be worth it to you. Now, one thing to consider though is that throughout this past season, we did end up seeing the introduction of Ermal, the nomadic trader that can allow you to end up getting weekly items at a cost, but also, more importantly, Expedition Vault slots that would allow you to guarantee that you carry over some of these blueprints you want to take into the next reset, that you'll have those on day 1. The big thing to note is that these are not duplicate protected. So while the actual mystery blueprints are duplicate protected, it's only confined within those 5 sort of spins for those blueprints rather than the overall potential 10 that you could have via Ermal and the mystery rewards. You could end up taking your 5 favorite blueprints in through that Expedition Vault, starting over the next air quote season with those ready to go. But if you did those 5 damage challenge thresholds that you got 5 blueprints out of it, you very well, in theory, could have those 5 blueprints exactly the same, duplicated once again. Now, perhaps that may not be the worst thing in the world, because then you can end up saving those to end up having in the next time around for the Expedition Vault, but there is no guarantee that these damage challenge blueprints are duplicate protected to allow you to have upwards of 10 solid options for blueprints right out of the gate. You could end up having duplicates, you could not. It's really all just luck of the draw. But the mystery rewards do not take into account what you're bringing over via Ermal to make sure those are duplicate protected in what the spins will give you. So definitely worth noting there. Now, your key reward differences this time around, of course, are the skill points, but another thing for those embarking on their 4th expedition means that you'll end up having to know that there's no consecutive buff expansion. So what we saw from Expedition 1 to 3, of course, was that everything would compound a little further. So your 2nd expedition, you had 10% base XP boost, 12% scrappy material boost, and 70% repair value increases, while your 3rd then saw an increase to that as well, where you had 15% base XP boosts, you had 18% scrappy material boost, and 80% repair value increase. However, this time around for the 4th expedition, you're not going to get any of those. So you're not going to have a 20% base XP boost, sort of 24% scrappy material boost, and a 90% repair value increase. All you're going to have is that 3rd expedition buff. You're going to have that continue on so that you still have 15% base XP, 18% scrappy boost, and 80% repair value increase, and it doesn't reset. That's a big difference here from expeditions 1 through 3 to 4 now at this point. And again, in the sort of is it worth it question mark, because for some people, it may not be that you don't end up getting that. The final thing to note, it's likely that the future of expeditions are still going to change, but not after another arguably maybe not worthwhile reset here at this. The timing gets a little strange, but even after this expedition, next expedition's reset is not going to have, again, more skill points. It's noted that it's already going to be the final of the stash increases we'll have, so you'll have a max of 60 over all of them, and it's likely we won't see those expedition consecutive bonuses again increase once more. But with the conclusion of next expedition, it should be right in line with that of the October update or Frozen Trails, which promises to bring along with it a lot of different changes fundamentally speaking. We've already seen the promise of progression changes. However that may work out, we're not sure. There's mentioned to be skill changes here with this, whether that be fundamentally the skill tree as a whole or specific changes, we don't quite know. But it is something that looks like after next expedition, we could be looking at potentially an entire overhaul system that might bring the expeditions back down to a sort of reset in and of itself, where if enough has changed fundamentally, maybe we end up seeing those bonuses worthwhile once again, even in Expedition 6, 7, and beyond as we go into year 2 of Arc Raiders and what the plans are there. But as of right now, there still really is a couple of question marks associated with that it's all speculation. But that said, that is what you should know about this Expedition 4 and beyond. A few highlighted pain points or interesting, awkward positions perhaps with how things are going to work out. But let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think of Expedition 4? Are you going to be taking part in this reset? Are you letting it coast and roll on so that you don't reset and maybe you pick back up with the next expedition? Let me know your thoughts down below. Before we wrap everything up though, a quick heads up, we have partnered with my friends over at Advanced GG. Again, as we've mentioned, a bit under the radar the last few months, but now going into the summer, ramping that up more and more. Advanced is the healthier energy supplement option where I use it daily as my comparable cup of coffee. Currently drinking that raspberry lemonade. Magic Rainbow Sherbet's also another one that's one of my favorites, but I'd highly recommend, and we actually co-branded that along with a few other items on their site, like a 26-ounce ice shaker. But love this stuff. If you're looking for a replacement for your own cup of coffee, give it a try. If you decide to give it a go, code espresso and get 10% off your entire order. But no sweat, appreciate you hearing me out on this, and of course, just checking in on the videos here that you made it this far. With that said, that's what we're gonna call it. So let me know your thoughts once again down below. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe for more Arc Raiders and even more FPS content. I'd love to have in the community, but for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care, and peace.